Maya had always known that her stepmother didn't love her. The woman who married her father 3 years ago made it clear from day one that Maya was nothing more than an unwanted burden in their household, while other children her age enjoyed. Playing with friends after school, Maya spent her evenings scrubbing floors, washing dishes, and caring for her baby half-brother. Her father, once a loving and attentive man, had changed completely after remarrying. He worked long hours at the textile factory and came home exhausted, barely noticing how his daughter was being treated. When Maya tried to tell him about the harsh punishments and endless chores, he would wave her off, saying that discipline was good for children and that she should be grateful to have a mother figure in her life. The small village where they lived was full of old traditions and superstitions. Everyone knew about the forbidden hour, the time between midnight and dawn when evil spirits were said to roam freely. No one ventured to the river during these dark hours, especially not alone. The elders spoke in hushed voices about people who had disappeared near the water during the forbidden time, their bodies never found. Maya's stepmother, Kamala, seemed to take pleasure in making the girl's life miserable. She would wake Maya at 4 in the morning to start the household chores, give her the smallest portions at meals, and punish her for the slightest mistakes. The woman's cruelty knew no bounds, but she was clever enough to hide it when Maya's father was around. One evening, as the autumn wind howled through the trees, Kamala called Maya into the kitchen. The girl had just finished her homework by candlelight, as they couldn't afford electricity in her small room. Her stepmother stood by the sink, her face twisted with an expression Maya had learned to fear. "The water jar is empty again," Kamala said, pointing to the large clay pot they used for drinking water. "You'll have to go to the river and fill it." Maya looked outside at the pitch-black night. Heavy clouds covered the moon, making it impossible to see anything beyond the small circle of light cast by their oil lamp. "But it's so late," she whispered. "Can't I go in the morning?" Kamala's eyes flashed with anger. "Are you questioning me, you ungrateful child? We need water for tomorrow's cooking. Your father expects his morning tea, and the baby needs fresh water for his formula. Or perhaps you think your comfort is more important than your family's needs." The girl's heart sank. She knew there was no use arguing. Her stepmother had made up her mind, and nothing Maya said would change it. She had learned through painful experience that disobedience only led to worse punishments. "Take the big pitcher," Kamala continued, handing her the heavy clay vessel. "Fill it completely and don't spill a drop on the way back. If you do, you'll have to make the trip again." Maya took the pitcher with trembling hands. It was large enough to hold water for several days, but that also made it incredibly heavy when full. She could barely carry it when it was empty, let alone when filled with water from the river. "Please," Maya tried once more. "The path is dangerous. At night. What if I fall?" Her stepmother laughed coldly. "Then you should be more careful. Stop making excuses and go. I want that water before I go to bed." Maya wrapped her thin shawl around her shoulders and picked up the small oil lamp from the table. The flame flickered weakly in the draft, casting dancing shadows on the walls. She knew her stepmother was sending her out at this hour on purpose. The woman seemed to enjoy watching Maya struggle and suffer. As she stepped outside, the cold night air hit her like a physical blow. The temperature had dropped significantly after sunset, and her breath formed small clouds in the darkness. The path to the river was treacherous even during the day, full of rocks and roots that could trip an unwary traveler. At night, it became a nightmare of hidden dangers. Maya walked slowly, holding the lamp high to illuminate as much of the path as possible. Every shadow seemed to move, and every sound made her jump. She had heard too many stories about the forbidden hour to feel comfortable being outside alone. The village children whispered about ghosts and demons that emerged from the river after midnight, hungry for human souls. The trees on either side of the path seemed to reach out toward her with gnarled branches, creating an archway of darkness above her head. Owls hooted in the distance, and she could hear the scurrying of small animals in the underbrush. Once, something larger crashed through the bushes nearby, making her heart race with terror. Maya thought about her mother, who had died when she was only 7 years old. Her mother would never have sent her out alone at such a dangerous hour. She would have protected her daughter, made sure she was safe and warm in her bed. The memory of her mother's gentle hands and loving smile brought tears to Maya's eyes. The girl wondered why her stepmother hated her so much. She tried her best to be helpful and obedient. She never complained about the extra work or the unfair treatment, yet nothing she did seemed to please the woman. If anything, her efforts to be good only seemed to make Kamala more cruel. As she walked deeper into the darkness, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching her. The sensation made her skin crawl, and she found herself looking over her shoulder every few steps. The lamp's weak light created a small bubble of visibility around her, but beyond that circle lay complete darkness. The path seemed longer than usual, winding through the forest like a snake. Maya's legs began to ache from the careful, measured steps she had to take to avoid falling. The empty pitcher grew heavier in her arms with each passing minute, and she couldn't imagine how she would manage the return journey with it full of water. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes, she heard the sound of running water ahead. The river was close now, just beyond the next bend in the path. Maya took a deep breath and prepared herself for what lay ahead, not knowing that this night would change her life forever. As Maya approached the riverbank, the sound of flowing water grew louder, mixing with the whisper of wind through the reeds. The river looked different at night, darker, more mysterious, almost alive in the flickering light of her small lamp. The water seemed to move with purpose, carrying secrets and stories from distant places. She set the lamp down on a flat rock and carefully made her way to the water's edge. The bank was muddy and slippery, made worse by the recent rains. Maya had to be extremely careful not to lose her footing and fall into the fast-moving current. She knew that many people had drowned in this river over the years, their bodies swept away by the powerful flow. Kneeling by the water, Maya dipped the heavy pitcher into the river. The cold water shocked her hands, making them numb almost immediately. She had to make several attempts to fill the vessel completely, as her frozen fingers kept losing their grip on the smooth clay surface. As she worked, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. The sensation had grown stronger since reaching the river, and now it felt as if invisible eyes were watching her every movement. She kept glancing around nervously, but the lamp's light only revealed empty darkness beyond the water's edge. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence of the night. "Child, what are you doing here at such a dangerous hour?" Maya nearly dropped the pitcher in shock. She spun around to find an elderly woman standing just outside the circle of lamplight. The stranger was tall and thin, wearing a simple white sari that seemed to glow softly in the darkness. Her long gray hair flowed loose around her shoulders, and her eyes held a kindness that Maya hadn't seen in years. I was sent to fetch water," Maya stammered, her heart still racing from the surprise. The old woman stepped closer, her bare feet making no sound on the rocky ground. "Sent by whom? What kind of person would send a young girl to the river during the forbidden hour?" Maya looked down at her feet, ashamed to admit the truth. "My stepmother. She said we needed water for tomorrow morning." The woman's expression grew serious. "Your stepmother knows the dangers of this time. The spirits that walk between midnight and dawn are not kind to the living. She has put you in great peril." Despite her fear, Maya felt drawn to this mysterious stranger. There was something comforting about her presence, something that reminded her of her deceased mother. "Are you one of the spirits?" she asked quietly. The woman smiled gently. "I am someone who has walked this earth for many years, child. I have seen much suffering and much joy. Tell me, how does your stepmother treat you?" Maya hesitated, then found herself pouring out the whole story. She told the old woman about the endless chores, the cruel punishments, the hunger, and the loneliness. She spoke of her father's indifference and her baby brother, who received all the love she craved. The words came tumbling out like water from a broken dam. The stranger listened without interruption, nodding occasionally with understanding. When Maya finished, tears streaming down her cheeks, the woman placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You have suffered much for one so young," she said softly, "but perhaps your suffering is about to end. Tell me, child, what is your greatest wish?" Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I wish my stepmother would be kind to me. I wish my father would notice me again. I wish I had someone who truly loved me." The old woman was quiet for a long moment, studying Maya's face in the lamplight. "Such wishes are not easily granted," she said finally, "but perhaps there is a way. Are you willing to do something for me in return?" Maya nodded eagerly. At this point, she was willing to do almost anything if it meant her life might improve. The stranger reached into the folds of her sari and pulled out a small cloth pouch. "Inside this bag are seeds from a very special tree. Plant them in your stepmother's garden tomorrow night and water them with tears of genuine sorrow, not tears of self-pity or anger, but tears shed for another's pain." Maya took the pouch, feeling its weight in her palm. The seeds inside rattled softly as she moved it. "What will grow from these seeds?" "That depends entirely on you, child. The tree that grows will reflect the true nature of your heart. If you are genuinely good and kind, despite your suffering, it will bring you what you most need. But if your heart has been poisoned by hatred and revenge, the tree will bring only more sorrow." The old woman began to fade back into the shadows, her white sari becoming less distinct. "Remember, you must plant the seeds tomorrow night during the new moon. Water them with true tears and then wait. The tree grows quickly, but its gifts come slowly." Maya reached out toward the disappearing figure. "Wait, what if my stepmother sees the tree? What if she destroys it?" But the woman was gone, vanished into the darkness as if she had never been there at all. Maya stood alone by the river, holding the mysterious pouch and wondering if she had imagined the entire encounter. She looked down at the pitcher, which was now full of water. She didn't remember finishing the task, but somehow it had been completed while she spoke with the strange woman. The clay vessel felt impossibly heavy as she lifted it, and she wondered how she would manage to carry it all the way home without spilling. The journey back seemed different somehow. The path that had felt so threatening on the way to the river now seemed almost welcoming. The shadows didn't seem as menacing, and the sounds of the night felt more like a gentle symphony than a cacophony of dangers. As she walked, Maya clutched the small pouch in her free hand. The seeds felt warm against her palm, as if they contained some inner fire. She thought about the old woman's words and wondered what kind of tree would grow from these mysterious seeds. More importantly, she wondered what kind of person she truly was deep in her heart. Maya had always tried to be good, despite her stepmother's cruelty. She helped her neighbors when she could, shared her meager food with stray animals, and never spoke ill of others, even those who treated her badly. But she couldn't deny that sometimes, in her darkest moments, she wished terrible things would happen to Kamala. The girl realized this might be a test of her character. The old woman had warned that the tree would reflect her true nature. Maya made a silent vow that she would plant the seeds with pure intentions, hoping only for kindness and love, not for revenge against those who had hurt her. By the time she reached home, the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the eastern sky. Her stepmother was waiting in the doorway, arms crossed and face twisted with anger. Kamala's eyes blazed with fury as Maya approached the house carrying the heavy water pitcher. The girl's legs trembled with exhaustion and her arms ached from the weight of the clay vessel, but she had managed not to spill a single drop during the treacherous journey home. "Where have you been?" Kamala hissed, grabbing Maya roughly by the arm. "It's almost dawn. How long does it take to fill one pitcher of water?" Maya winced as her stepmother's fingers dug into her flesh. She could feel the small pouch of seeds pressing against her leg where she had hidden it in the folds of her dress. "I'm sorry. The path was difficult to see in the dark, and I had to move slowly." Kamala snatched the pitcher from Maya's hands, examining it critically. "At least you didn't spill any," she grudgingly admitted. "But don't think this excuses your laziness. You'll still have all your regular chores today, plus extra cleaning in the storage room." Maya nodded silently, too, tired to argue. She watched as her stepmother carried the water inside, then followed slowly behind. Her father had already left for work at the textile factory, and her baby brother was still sleeping in his cradle. The house felt empty and cold, just like always. Throughout the day, Maya went about her tasks mechanically. She swept the floors, washed clothes in the small courtyard, prepared meals, and tended to her half-brother when he woke crying. But her mind kept drifting to the mysterious encounter by the river. Had it really happened? Or had her exhausted brain conjured up the old woman as some kind of hallucination? The pouch of seeds felt real enough, hidden safely in her clothes. Several times during the day, Maya touched it gently, reassured by its solid presence. Whatever had happened by the river, the seeds were proof that something extraordinary had occurred. As evening approached, Maya found herself watching the sky anxiously. The old woman had said to plant the seeds during the new moon, which meant tonight. The moon would be completely dark, providing perfect cover for her secret task. After dinner, which consisted of rice and lentils for Maya, while her stepmother and baby brother enjoyed vegetables and milk, Maya began her evening chores. She washed the dishes, swept the kitchen, and helped put the baby to bed. All the while, she waited for Kamala to retire for the night. Finally, around 10 o'clock, her stepmother announced she was going to sleep. "Make sure the fire is properly banked," Kamala instructed, "and check that all the doors are locked. I don't want any wild animals getting into the house." Maya nodded obediently and watched as Kamala disappeared into the bedroom she shared with Maya's father. The girl waited another hour, listening carefully for any sounds from the room. When she was certain both adults were asleep, she quietly slipped outside into the small garden behind their house. The garden was Kamala's pride and joy, though she never let Maya help tend it. It was filled with vegetables, herbs, and a few flowering plants that provided color during the warmer months. Maya had always admired the neat rows and healthy plants, wishing she could learn how to make things grow. Now, under the cover of complete darkness, Maya searched for the perfect spot to plant her mysterious seeds. She chose a corner of the garden that was partially hidden by a large bush, where a small tree wouldn't be immediately noticeable to her stepmother. Maya carefully dug a small hole with her hands, the soft earth cool between her fingers. She pulled out the cloth pouch and opened it, feeling the seeds with her fingertips. There were 7 of them, each about the size of a pea and smooth to the touch. As she placed the seeds in the ground, Maya thought about the old woman's instructions. She needed to water them with tears of genuine sorrow, not self-pity or anger, but tears shed for another's pain. At first, Maya wasn't sure she could cry on command, but then she began to think about all the suffering she had witnessed in her short life. She thought about her father, who worked so hard at the factory that his hands were permanently stained and his back ached constantly. She thought about her baby brother, who would grow up not knowing his half-sister's love because of their mother's hatred. Most of all, she thought about her stepmother. Maya realized that Kamala must have experienced great pain in her own life to become so cruel. Perhaps she had been hurt as a child, Or maybe she was jealous of Maya's relationship with her father. Whatever the reason, Maya found herself feeling genuinely sorry for the woman who made her life so difficult. As these thoughts filled her mind, tears began to flow down Maya's cheeks. They were not tears of self-pity for her own suffering, but tears of compassion for the pain of others. She let them fall onto the freshly planted seeds, watching as the moisture disappeared into the dark earth. "Please," Maya whispered to the seeds, to the old woman, to any force in the universe that might be listening, "let something good grow from this pain. Let it bring healing, not more hurt." She carefully covered the seeds with soil and patted the ground gently. There was no sign that anything had been planted there, which would hopefully keep Kamala from discovering the secret garden. Maya crept back into the house and went to her small room. She lay on her thin mattress, staring up at the ceiling and wondering what would happen next. The old woman had said the tree would grow quickly, but its gifts would come slowly. Maya wasn't sure what that meant, but she felt a tiny spark of hope for the first time in years. The next morning brought no immediate changes. Maya woke before dawn as usual, started the cooking fire, and began preparing breakfast for the family. Kamala emerged from her room in her typical bad mood, criticizing Maya for being too slow with the morning meal. But throughout the day, Maya found herself glancing out at the garden whenever possible. She saw nothing unusual in the corner where she had planted the seeds, but that didn't discourage her. Real magic, she reasoned, probably didn't happen overnight. For the next several days, Maya's routine continued unchanged. She did her chores, cared for her brother, and endured her stepmother's harsh treatment. But now she had a secret that gave her strength. Every night when she was sure everyone was asleep, she would sneak out to check on her hidden planting spot. On the fourth night, Maya's heart nearly stopped when she saw a tiny green shoot poking through the soil. The seed had germinated! She knelt down to examine the small plant more closely, hardly daring to believe her eyes. It was real, and it was growing. The little sprout was unlike any plant Maya had ever seen before. Its leaves were a deep emerald green with silver veins that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. Even as a tiny seedling, there was something magical about its appearance. Maya wanted to touch the plant, but something held her back. The old woman had given her specific instructions about planting and watering, but she hadn't said anything about caring for the tree as it grew. Maya decided it would be safer to simply observe and let nature take its course. Over the following weeks, Maya watched in amazement as the plant grew at an impossible rate. Within 2 weeks, it had become a small sapling with dozens of unusual leaves. By the end of the month, it was a young tree standing nearly as tall as Maya herself. Remarkably, Kamala never seemed to notice the new addition to her garden. Maya began to wonder if the tree was somehow invisible to her stepmother's eyes, or if it cast some kind of spell that made people overlook it. The tree's rapid growth should have been impossible, but Maya had learned to accept the impossible since her encounter by the river. She was beginning to understand that some things in this world operated by different rules than the ones she had been taught. As the mysterious tree continued to grow, Maya began to notice subtle changes in her daily life. At first, they were so small that she almost missed them. A neighbor woman smiled at her warmly while she was drawing water from the village well. The baker's wife gave her an extra piece of bread when she was sent to buy flour. Small kindnesses that had been absent from her world for so long began to appear. The tree itself had become a source of wonder. Within 6 weeks of planting, it stood nearly 10 feet tall, with a trunk as thick as Maya's waist. Its leaves had grown larger and more beautiful, shimmering with an inner light that seemed to pulse gently in rhythm with some unseen heartbeat. During the day, the tree looked like an ordinary fruit tree to casual observation, but at night, it revealed its magical nature. Maya had established a routine of visiting the tree every evening after everyone was asleep. She would sit beneath, its spreading branches, and feel a sense of peace that she had never experienced before. The tree seemed to radiate calmness and love, filling the empty spaces in her heart that had been carved out by years of neglect and cruelty. One night, as Maya sat quietly beneath the tree, she noticed something new. Small buds had appeared on several branches, tightly closed, but definitely present. The old woman had said the tree's gifts would come slowly, and Maya wondered if these buds were the beginning of whatever miracle was meant to unfold. Meanwhile, her stepmother's behavior had begun to shift in ways that puzzled Maya. Kamala still assigned her endless chores and spoke harshly to her, but there were moments when her expression would soften unexpectedly. Sometimes Maya would catch her stepmother looking at her with an expression that was almost sad. Not angry or disgusted, but genuinely sorrowful. The first major change came on a rainy Thursday evening. Maya was scrubbing the kitchen floor when her baby brother began crying in his cradle. Normally, Kamala would rush to comfort him immediately, often blaming Maya for disturbing his sleep even when she had been quietly working. This time, Kamala looked at Maya and said, "Finish the floor first. I'll tend to him." Her voice was still stern, but there was no anger in it. Maya was so surprised that she nearly dropped her scrub brush. A few days later, something even more remarkable happened. Maya had been sent to the market to buy vegetables, and she had carefully counted the money Kamala had given her. But when she reached the vendor's stall, she realized she had somehow lost a coin along the way. Her heart sank as she imagined the punishment that would await her at home. When Maya returned with fewer vegetables than expected and tearfully explained what had happened, she braced herself for the usual slap or harsh scolding. Instead, Kamala studied her face for a long moment, then simply nodded. "Be more careful next time," was all she said. Maya was so shocked by this mild response that she stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. Her stepmother noticed her surprise and frowned. "What are you staring at? Don't you have chores to finish?" That night, Maya sat beneath the tree and told it about the strange changes she was witnessing. She had begun talking to the tree as if it were an old friend, sharing her thoughts and feelings with its silent presence. As she spoke, she noticed that the buds on the branches had grown larger and seemed to glow more brightly. "I don't understand what's happening," Maya whispered to the tree. "She's still not kind to me, but she's not as cruel as before. It's like something inside her is changing." As if in response to her words, one of the larger buds began to tremble. Maya watched in fascination as the bud slowly opened, revealing not a flower, but something far more extraordinary. Inside the opening bud was a tiny glowing orb that looked like a captured star. The orb pulsed gently with warm golden light. As Maya stared at this miraculous sight, she heard footsteps approaching through the garden. Her heart leaped with fear, certain that Kamala had discovered her secret. But when she turned around, she saw her father walking slowly toward her. Maya had barely spoken to her father in months. He had become like a ghost in their house, present, but not really there. Now he stood at the edge of the tree's shadow, staring at the glowing branches with wonder. "Maya," he said softly, "what is this tree? I've never seen it before." Maya's mind raced as she tried to think of an explanation. I don't know, Papa. I noticed it growing here recently. Maybe a bird dropped a seed." Her father stepped closer, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the newly opened orb. As the light touched his face, Maya saw something she hadn't seen in years. Recognition. Her father was truly seeing her for the first time since his remarriage. "My daughter," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "What have I done to you? How could I have been so blind?" Maya felt tears spring to her eyes as her father knelt down and pulled her into his arms. The hug was gentle and warm, filled with all the love that had been missing from her life for so long. "I'm so sorry," her father whispered into her hair. I let my grief over your mother's death cloud my judgment. I thought Kamala would be good for both of us, but I failed to protect you. I failed to be the father you needed." As they embraced beneath the magical tree, more buds began to open. Each one released a small orb of light that floated upward into the night sky like a tiny lantern. The garden filled with a soft, golden glow that seemed to heal old wounds and mend broken hearts. From that night forward, Maya's relationship with her father began to change dramatically. He started coming home earlier from the factory, spending time with her and asking about her day. He noticed when she looked tired or hungry, and he began to question some of Kamala's harsher punishments. The changes in the household didn't go unnoticed by Kamala herself. Maya could see confusion and something that might have been fear in her stepmother's eyes as her husband began to pay more attention to his daughter. But strangely, instead of becoming more cruel in response, Kamala seemed to withdraw into herself. Maya began to notice her stepmother sitting alone in the evenings, staring out the window with the expression of deep sadness. Sometimes she would catch Kamala looking at her with an expression that was almost regretful, as if she was seeing Maya clearly for the first time and didn't like what she had done. The tree continued to bloom, releasing more orbs of light each night. Maya realized that each orb represented some form of healing or positive change in her world. The tree wasn't just growing in her stepmother's garden. It was growing in the hearts of everyone around her, slowly transforming hatred into understanding and cruelty into compassion. But Maya sensed that the tree's greatest miracle was yet to come. The old woman had spoken of gifts that would come slowly, and Maya felt that she had only seen the beginning of what this magical tree could accomplish. As she watched her father reading a story to her baby brother one evening, including her in the family moment for the first time in years, Maya felt a warmth in her heart that matched the golden glow of the tree's orbs. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was no longer facing them alone. As autumn deepened into winter, the miraculous tree continued its work of transformation. The golden orbs that bloomed from its branches each night had become Maya's source of hope and strength. She had counted 47 of them so far, each one marking a positive change in her life or the lives of those around her. Her father had become protective of her in ways that reminded Maya of her early childhood. He began questioning Kamala's treatment of Maya more directly, insisting that his daughter deserved fair meals and reasonable bedtimes. The change in him was so complete that neighbors began to comment on it, saying he seemed like a different man. Maya's relationship with her baby brother had also blossomed. Now that her father was present and engaged, Maya was allowed to spend more time with the child. She discovered that he was a bright, cheerful baby who seemed to adore his big sister. When she sang to him, he would stop crying and listen with wide, curious eyes. When she played simple games with him, he would giggle with pure joy. But the most remarkable changes were happening to Kamala herself. Maya's stepmother had grown increasingly quiet and withdrawn. Instead of finding new ways to torment Maya, she seemed lost in her own thoughts. There were days when she would forget to assign chores, or would give Maya normal-sized portions at meals without seeming to realize what she was doing. One cold December evening, Maya was surprised to find Kamala sitting beneath the magical tree. Her stepmother was hugging her knees to her chest and crying softly, the golden light from the tree's orbs illuminating the tears on her face. Maya's first instinct was to run away before Kamala noticed her, but something in her stepmother's posture, the way she seemed so small and broken, made Maya pause. Instead of fleeing, she slowly approached the crying woman. "Kamala," Maya said gently, using her stepmother's name instead of the formal mother she had been forced to use for years. The older woman looked up in surprise, hastily wiping her tears. "Maya, what are you doing out here? You should be in bed." "I couldn't sleep," Maya replied honestly. "Are you all right?" Kamala stared at her for a long moment as if seeing her clearly for the first time. The golden light from the tree seemed to strip away all pretenses and defenses, leaving only raw truth between them. "No," Kamala whispered finally. "I'm not. All right. I haven't been all right for a very long time." Maya sat down beside her stepmother, maintaining a careful distance but offering her presence. "Do you want to talk about it?" Kamala was quiet for so long that Maya thought she wouldn't answer. But finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she began to speak. "I was like you once," she said. "An unwanted child in a house where I didn't belong. My father died when I was 8, and my mother remarried a man who already had children of his own. His children were his treasures, and I was just a burden to be fed and clothed." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. The parallel between their situations was startling. "His wife, my stepmother, made my life a misery," Kamala continued. "She gave me endless chores, fed me scraps, and punished me for the smallest mistakes. I promised myself that when I grew up, I would never let anyone treat me that way again. I would be strong and in control." The golden orbs above them pulsed gently, as if encouraging Kamala to continue her confession. "When I married your father, I saw you as a threat," she admitted. "You had his love so easily, so naturally. You reminded him of his first wife, the woman he had truly loved. I was jealous of a child, and I let that jealousy turn me into the very monster who had tormented me." Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes, but not tears of self-pity. She was crying for the frightened little girl that Kamala had once been, the child who had been hurt so badly that she had grown up to hurt others in return. "I see what I've done to you," Kamala continued, her voice breaking. "I see how I've treated you, and I'm horrified. You're just a child, innocent and good, and I've been cruel to you because of my own pain. I don't know how to stop being the person I became." Maya reached out tentatively and touched Kamala's hand. "Maybe you don't have to stop being that person," she said softly. "Maybe you just have to remember who you were before the pain changed you." As Maya spoke these words, something extraordinary happened. The largest bud on the tree, one that had been growing slowly for weeks, suddenly began to tremble and glow. Both Maya and Kamala watched in wonder as it opened, revealing not just one golden orb, but dozens of them, swirling together in a magnificent display of light. The orbs rose from the bud and began to circle around Kamala, bathing her in warm, healing light. As the light touched her, years of hardness seemed to melt away from her face. The bitter lines around her mouth softened, and her eyes lost their sharp defensive edge. "I'm so sorry," Kamala sobbed, reaching out to embrace Maya. "I'm so very sorry for everything I've done to you. Can you ever forgive me?" Maya didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arms around her stepmother and held her tightly as they both cried beneath the magical tree. The golden orbs continued to swirl around them, healing wounds that had festered for years and building bridges where there had once been walls. From that night forward, everything changed. Kamala began treating Maya with genuine kindness, not the forced politeness of someone trying to hide their true feelings, but the natural care of someone who had rediscovered their capacity for love. She taught Maya how to cook her favorite dishes, helped her with her schoolwork, and even braided her hair in the mornings before school. Maya's father noticed the transformation immediately. The tension that had filled their house for years began to dissipate, replaced by something that resembled a real family. They began eating meals together, talking about their days, and making plans for the future. The tree seemed to sense that its work was nearing completion. The nightly blooming of orbs had slowed, and Maya noticed that the tree itself had stopped growing. It had reached the perfect size for their small garden, tall enough to provide shade and beauty without overwhelming the space. One evening in late winter, Maya was sitting with Kamala beneath the tree, helping her stepmother mend clothes by the golden light of the orbs. It had become their favorite time together, these quiet moments when they could talk without the pressures of daily life. "Maya," Kamala said softly, setting down her sewing, "I need to tell you something important." Maya looked up from the sock. She was darning, sensing the seriousness in her stepmother's tone. "I know this tree is special," Kamala continued. "I know it appeared after that night when I sent you to the river during the forbidden hour. I don't understand how or why, but I know it's connected to the changes in our family." Maya's heart began to race. She had never told anyone about the old woman by the river or the magical seeds. "I also know," Kamala said, reaching over to take Maya's hand, "that whatever brought this tree into our lives, it was meant to heal us, all of us. And I want you to know that I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the second chance it has given me." Maya squeezed her stepmother's hand, feeling a warmth that went deeper than the tree's golden light. "You don't have to earn forgiveness," she said. "It's freely given, just like love should be." As winter melted into spring, the tree began to produce fruit. But these were not ordinary fruits. They were small, golden spheres that glowed softly from within, each one containing a concentrated essence of the love and healing that had transformed their family. Maya realized that the tree's work was complete. It had given them everything the old woman had promised. Not revenge or magical power, but something far more precious. It had given them the ability to love and be loved, to forgive and be forgiven, and to build a future based on understanding rather than pain. The mysterious seeds had grown into exactly what Maya's heart had needed most. Not a weapon against her enemies, but a bridge to connect her with the family she had always wanted. The tree stood as a testament to the power of compassion over cruelty and love over hatred. Years passed, and the magical tree became the heart of their transformed family. Maya grew from a frightened, overworked child into a confident young woman who radiated the same kindness that had once saved her. The tree, now fully mature, provided fruit that the family shared with neighbors and friends, spreading its healing influence throughout the village. Maya's little brother, now old enough to walk and talk, adored the tree as much as she did. He would spend hours playing beneath its branches, and Maya would tell him stories about magical seeds and mysterious old women by rivers. He listened with wide eyes, believing every word, and Maya never told him that the stories were true. Kamala had become the mother Maya had always dreamed of having. She was gentle but firm, loving but wise, and she had a gift for helping other, troubled families in the village. Word had spread about the remarkable change in their household, and people often came to Kamala for advice about healing family relationships. Maya's father had returned to being the loving, attentive parent he had been before grief had clouded his judgment. He often said that he felt like he had been sleepwalking for years and had finally woken up to find his family whole and happy. One spring evening, exactly 7 years after Maya had first planted the mysterious seeds, she was sitting beneath the tree with her family. Her father was reading to her brother from a book of folk tales, while Kamala worked on embroidery in the golden light of the tree's gentle glow. As Maya watched this peaceful scene, she noticed a familiar figure approaching through the garden. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the tall, thin woman in the white sari who had appeared to her by the river so long ago. The old woman looked exactly the same as she had that night, ageless, serene, and radiating an otherworldly wisdom. She walked directly to the tree and stood beside it, her hand resting gently on its trunk. Maya's family seemed unable to see the visitor. They continued their evening activities, completely unaware of the extraordinary presence among them. "Hello, child," the old woman said softly, her voice carrying the same kindness Maya remembered. Maya rose quietly and approached the mysterious figure. "You came back," she whispered, not wanting to disturb her family's peaceful evening. I told you the tree would grow quickly, but its gifts would come slowly, the woman replied with a gentle smile. 7 years have passed, and now its work is complete. Your family has been healed, not through magic alone, but through the choices you made and the love you chose to cultivate. Maya looked back at her family, then at the tree that had made it all possible. Was it really magic? Or was it something else? The old woman's eyes twinkled with ancient wisdom. The most powerful magic in the world is the magic of a heart that chooses love over hatred, forgiveness over revenge. The seeds I gave you were special, yes, but they could only grow what was already present in your spirit. Another child might have planted them and grown a tree of thorns. What happens now? Maya asked. Will the tree always be here? The tree will remain as long as your family needs it, the woman replied. But its most important work is done. You have learned to create love without magic, to build bridges without supernatural help. The tree was just a teacher. You and your family are the real miracle. As the old woman spoke, Maya noticed that some of the tree's golden orbs were beginning to fade. Not disappearing entirely, but becoming softer, more natural, like regular moonlight filtering through leaves. The tree is becoming ordinary, Maya observed. No, the woman corrected gently. It's becoming what it was always meant to be, a symbol of the extraordinary things that ordinary people can accomplish when they choose love. Your neighbors will see it as a beautiful fruit tree that brings families together. They'll never know about its magical origins, but they'll feel its influence. Maya felt a moment of sadness that the purely magical time was ending, but it was quickly replaced by a deeper joy. She realized that she no longer needed magic to maintain the love in her family. They had learned to create their own miracles through daily acts of kindness, understanding, and forgiveness. Thank you, Maya said to the old woman, for everything. The mysterious figure smiled and began to fade back into the shadows, just as she had done years ago by the river. Remember, child, her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The greatest magic happens when people choose to love each other despite their flaws and differences. You carry that magic within you now. As the old woman disappeared, Maya returned to her family. They welcomed her back into their circle without question, and she settled down to listen to her father finish the story he was reading. The tree above them swayed gently in the evening breeze, its branches heavy with fruit that glowed softly in the natural moonlight. It looked like any other fruit tree now, but Maya knew that appearances could be deceiving. Sometimes the most ordinary things in life were the most magical of all. Maya grew up to become a teacher in the village school, known for her ability to help troubled children and heal fractured families. She never married, but she was never lonely. Her family remained close, and she had countless friends and neighbors who considered her a blessing in their lives. Kamala lived to be an old woman, spending her final years helping other stepmothers learn to love their stepchildren. She often said that Maya had saved her soul, though Maya always insisted that they had saved each other. Maya's brother grew up strong and kind, influenced by the loving atmosphere that had surrounded him from his earliest memories. He became a doctor, dedicating his life to healing others just as his family had been healed. And the tree continued to stand in their garden, bearing fruit that tasted sweeter than any other in the village. Children would play beneath its branches, couples would meet in its shade, and families would gather around it for celebrations and quiet moments alike. Maya often sat beneath the tree in her later years, thinking about the night when her stepmother had sent her to the river at the forbidden hour. What had seemed like cruelty at the time had actually been the beginning of the greatest blessing of her life. Sometimes the path to happiness led through the darkest places, but love always found a way to light the journey. the tree remained. In the garden long after Maya was gone, a testament to the power of choosing love over hatred, hope over despair, and forgiveness over revenge. And though few people knew its true story, everyone who encountered it felt a little more peaceful, a little more loving, and a little more willing to believe in the possibility of second chances. In the end, Maya's story became part of the village's folklore, passed down from generation to generation as a reminder that even in the darkest times, when we are sent out into the forbidden hours of our lives, we might discover that we carry within ourselves the seeds of our own salvation.